Thank you for coming to Earth, people. Today we have Granny Deep Sea again with Got Bible Part 2. I hope you enjoyed the first video. Now let's take a look at what she has to say today.
Alright, we're going to go way back before the Bible, and I'm going to discuss something that happened in, it's kind of prehistory, because it's not like they're talking about this, but you can find the evidence for it, so that's what we're going to talk about. So, I kept looking, where did the mistakes happen? Lord Buddha in 500 BC gave the Kalama Sutra, which said, don't believe anything your teacher says, don't believe anything because it has been handed down as a belief for hundreds of years. Don't believe it until you've tested it and found that it is good for one and all. Then you may add it to the Code of Human Conduct. Well, what that meant to me is, now hold on a minute. He just said, don't believe something that's been passed down generation after generation. So I said, okay, apparently Lord Buddha came here 500 BC and noted that there was a problem, and that problem was ancient, already at his time. So I realized, okay, I have to go before Lord Buddha to find out what went wrong on Earth. So eventually the story that actually made the angels start talking was the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita. And now that story is, it talks about two armies arrayed on a battlefield, getting ready to have a war, millions of participants, when there weren't even millions of humans on the planet at that time. So you got to realize there's something already funky going on about this story. Now, this story says that, that two armies are going to come together on this battlefield. Well, I believe the battlefield is in heaven. I believe what they're talking about is the fact that Andromeda and Milky Way are destined to collide in a couple 100 million years to 1 billion years. They knew that in Babylon, that Milky Way and Andromeda are set on a collision course, and they will be colliding, and they will turn into a spiral galaxy in the future. The story has done very bad things. So first of all, in that story, Krishna says to Arjuna, get back to the battle now. Now this is something that would lead you to believe that God is okay with war, which is not the case. And so in chapter 2, Krishna is telling Arjuna, get back to the battle, you're gonna win. That makes people believe that God takes sides in human war and actually wants a guy to win and tells him to go back, keep fighting. But then again, if you go to the Gita chapter 16, it says never create suffering. Well, since we know war creates suffering, we now have a big problem. We need to figure out what happened here. Well, if he's talking about the war in heaven, the quote-unquote marrying of the galaxies, that can't be stopped. But if you're talking about war on Earth, well, that can be stopped. So, if what got mistranslated is heavenly laws of motion, where I say for every action there is an equal opposite reaction, somebody read that and said as above so below, God's laws here, then they would have turned that into karma, which is benign. Karma is a benign thing. People don't tend to use it as a war cry. But when Abraham took that same teaching to the Fertile Crescent, where everybody was a bunch of warriors, they said, oh, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, thus saith the Lord. Yeah, go get him. Well, what did Jesus say? Jesus came here. He didn't talk about a lot of stuff. He didn't talk about science, even though I'm sure he was quite knowledgeable in all facets of science. Since that is not what he did, let's see what he did. He said, you have heard it said, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, and then I say, turn the other cheek. Well, that's interesting because he got in trouble from the Sadducees and the Pharisees because he was said to be trying to change the law, which would be the Torah, which we already know from yesterday is already just a jumble of letters. So, he was trying to change the law? No, the law remains the same. For every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. It's a heavenly law of motion, just like Newton said. What Jesus was trying to do is change the Code of Human Conduct to back what it's supposed to be. Step 1 in the Code of Human Conduct, we got to work together. He said, love one another. He said, love God, love your neighbor, love yourself. Why? Because we work as a hive. We don't do well just one gecko at a time, friends, and that's why the virus has us all separated. They separate us so that we can't realize our full potential. So Jesus said that so that we would be able to understand that we need to love one another. And he didn't say coexist, and he didn't say tolerate, he said love. So we'll get to that, but my big thing is, are we actually supposed to be doing anything? Well, yes, I think we are. So let's check and see what Homer and Virgil have said about what humans might be here to do. Well, there's this thing called the Cyclops, a one-eyed giant, and some dudes go and stab out his eye in 2 different stories. And he's like really tall and big, and you really believe he let those little teeny dudes stab out his one and only eye? I don't. Sorry, folks. So, let's check and see what this guy is. He is 1 of 100 of the Brotherhood of Etna. Etna is a volcano here. Then we got some mountains. Then we got the Cyclopean holes over here. And if you go there right now, you'll see some outcroppings of rock on the side of that mountain. That's where you stab, friend. That's where you stab. And that's going to release the pressure from Etna. Well, that job, that took a sacrifice. At some point, some guys said, I don't think so. No, 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 no. And they became pirates, and those pirates sailed off to get something somewhere. They certainly didn't do their job, and at that point, Mount Etna exploded. We do not want this to happen to Vesuvius. Vesuvius is huge, and back then, it was the basalt layer of the earth that was erupting. We have cooled. We are much stronger. In order for Vesuvius to explode, it's going to catastrophically hurt humanity. We can't let this happen. So everything's been moved, number 1, to can we please put the pressure releasing holes back on the planet's volcanoes where they belong. That's part of our task. I'm telling you right now, the volcano lets the land be fertile for the human. The human uses that land, but must attend to the volcano. This is kind of in lore. Now, if anyone realizes that there's going to be a pressure releasing spot, the volcano starts to get a little feisty, and there's some steam coming out over there, go stab the steam and let the pressure out. That's all. That's all I'm saying here. We really have a job. It's been forgotten. The virus doesn't care about it. They have a spaceship. So whatever, they can get off our planet or hide inside the planet or whatever they think they can do to get away from impending disaster. They have that. We're not rich like them. We don't have their toys. So we need to do what we came here to do to make sure the earth stays nice and calm and beautiful so we can continue to live here and raise our families. Thank you for coming to Earth.